Hello. Hello.
Hello, this is Michael Fitzsimons from the University of Chicago for GDC.
Hi, Michael. This is Anu.
Hi, how are you?
Doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Just trying to get used to this new conference system. I haven't used ReadyTalk before.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Anu.
Hi. I'm not sure that.
We cannot hear you.
Hey, Hua.
Hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, but the voice is low though. Okay.
Let me see if I can make that a little bit better.
It's better now.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. If we can just wait for a couple minutes for Jeff to call in. I'm just going to email. Hello.
Hey, this is Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. We were waiting for you to call in before we got started. So on the call, we have Ian, Jeff, Jing, Justin, Michael, Sharon, Stephen, Todd, Hua, and Hua in the room with you. Who do you have?
Bharat, Jin, and Ergen.
Okay. Can we maybe quickly have a round of introductions? My name is Anu, and I am the technical project manager for BioCaddy. So I've been managing the core development team, which actually has been instrumental in developing DataMed, which is a data discovery index. Why you want to just briefly introduce?
Sure. Hi, my name is Hua Shu. I'm a professor at Biomedical Informatics at the University of Texas at Houston, and I'm leading this core development team together with Jeff.
Siraj, Jing, and Alvin?
Hi, my name is Frat. I'm the software developer in the project.
Hi, this is Anshu.
Hello, this is Argin Sorisal. I'm
assistant professor in Dr. Shu's group, and I'm primarily working on terminology-related issues.
Hello, this is Jean. I'm the software of the project. Thank you.
Jeff, do you want to go next?
Yeah, Jeffrey Greta from University of California, San Diego. Involved with Hua in the core development, and have been mainly focusing on the back end infrastructure.
Ian?
Yep, so I'm Ian Four. I'm the science officer on the BioCaddy Award, as well as being, my day job being at NCI in CBIT.
Ashish, if you could just introduce yourself. Oh, I'm not sure he has called in yet. So maybe Justin?
Yeah, hi, I'm Justin Kirby at Frederick National Lab, helping manage the Cancer Imaging Archive.
Right. Michael?
Hi, this is Michael Fitzsimons, the University of Chicago. I'm the User Services Manager for the GDC project.
Sharon?
Hi, I'm Sharon Deheen. I'm the Technical Project Manager for the GDC. I'm with Frederick National Labs. Thanks.
Susan? Okay. Nansu? Can you introduce yourself?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we hear you.
Okay. This is Nansu, and I'm a postdoc researcher on the DBMI UCSD, and I'm working for metadata injection in BioCaddy project. So specifically, I'm working on extracting metadata from different repositories and matching to DATS metadata model. So that's my work.
So did we leave out anybody? I guess
Ashish Sharma from Emory University. I'm part of the TCIA team.
Okay, thank you. And then was there anybody else who didn't?
Yeah, this is Todd Peel from Frederick National Lab. I'll be working on some of NCI's upcoming data commons projects.
Okay, thank you for introducing yourself. So just to go with the agenda, we will go over a couple of action items from our last meeting. This is primarily, of course, for the BioCaddy team. And then we can start our discussion of why we are meeting. I guess most of you probably already had attended the prior meeting that we had, that Ian had arranged earlier. And I'm hoping we can pick up from where we left off last time. And also Ian had a couple of questions and clarifications that he wanted with regard to the BioCaddy workshop. So we can go over that. Jeff wanted to talk about the DAT service, and my assumption is that would take up the whole hour for today's meeting. Then we'll catch up with everybody else on the team with the NCE work that's ongoing right now. So for the action items, as I mentioned, we have the GDC and TCIA folks joining us today, so we'll have a discussion. Where Ian has present contact with Dr. Greg Faber, and we are trying to schedule a meeting with him to discuss our work with ENDAR. For Viper, and IRD. Natsu has already finished working on Viper, and he is working on IRD currently.
Yeah, and we're looking on the Viper on our side now, so.
Yeah, so that's going to be indexed shortly, right?
Correct.
So the next step for us is also for import. We need to link import to Geo and SRA at the sample level or the study level. So Jeff, I think we need to talk about this sometime, maybe in the next meeting.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah.
And with regard to IEDD, Philippe is still working with the IEDD folks to map their metadata, or at least part of their metadata, to DATS. Haven't had any updates from them yet. With ICPSR, we have to contact Matthew to set up a meeting with Matthew because we have already reviewed whatever documentation was sent to us by the ICPSR folks, and then we also need to follow up with them with regard to getting ICPSR dimensions or variables level data. For FitBear, we are also scheduling a call during the week that's next week. So as soon as the call is scheduled, I'll let the team know, and whoever can make it is welcome to join in. Jeff, I sent you the list of availability, so if you could let me know when you would be available for this call, that would be great.
Okay.
So to move on to the GDC and TCIA, in part of the reason why we are having this discussion is because the intent in DataMed is to search across GDC and TCIA, where a single participant has data that's distributed across different repositories. So the plan is to be able to link data sets and then link the individuals so that users who are looking for this data would be able to get this data from both, or at least know that this data is available from both the repositories. So I guess this is just what I put in. I mean, we can talk about this. So what would the CDP need to actually build this link into our ingestion pipeline? So, Jeff,
Anu, I wanted to comment on this. I mean, as the intent here. I mean, sure, the intent, you do have to know that, yes, there are participants in both data sets that have both imaging and genomic data. But the intent rather is more about the data set, to say, yes, there's a data set that has cases, that has data in two repositories. Now, you can derive that from knowing that the same participants are in both, but the search that one wants to see is that there is, for example, a glioblastoma data set, which we have genomic data and imaging for. Because at the moment, as we've seen, you can search and find there's a TCIA glioblastoma data set, other than the fact that I don't think that was indexed by disease, as we said earlier. And you can find that there's a GDC data set. There's nothing that tells you those are the same study with this, and that there are patients in common between them. So I think that's more the use case than the way it's kind of described here.
Hey, Ian, is the objective limited to identifying collections or projects where data is available at, like in my case, at TCIA and GDC. So it's at that project or collection level, right?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, one assumes that what one would then do is, having found that those exist, is you would access both of those. But accessing and working with the data at a detailed level is beyond the scope of what DataMed would do for you.
So here's a question. You won't have an idea on whether we have genomic data or so. So I'm just thinking out loud. Would it help if DataMed also had an option, or maybe it has an option to provide information that this repository is linked with that repository? In other words, like, we don't store genomic data and GDC doesn't store imaging data, but both TCI and GDC could conceivably, or at least I can speak for TCI, TCI could very easily add linkages to those places where we know data exists on the GDC side of things. So now, in the current mechanism, if I did this, I think it'd be wrong for DataMed to say, well, TCI stores genomic data. We don't. We just have linkages to genomic data for the subjects that we have images for. So is there this sort of an association that is stored that could be represented in DataMed? Because that would be the easiest place to propagate that information up onto you.
I mean, what you're saying sounds like a way of addressing this, but I was just highlighting, the level at which this, connectivity, this integration, the use cases that the integration is intended to address. But I'd leave that. Maybe others on the DataMed team want to describe the functionality in a different way. But that's, at the outset, that was the problem we were trying to solve. It's the one that, I just highlighted, that there are apparently two different studies when really they're two very closely related studies in different repositories.
So, I mean, it sounds like there is then potential information within TCIA, and I'm not sure about GDC, that does have information on the specific links.
We can add that information, not in the current TCIA, but so we were just awarded a new U24 to sustain the TCIA environment, and one of our activities was sort of closer collaborations with the GDC. So I don't think it would be hard to, the work will have to be done, but I think it'll be possible to add links to the GDC for at least the TCGS subjects, because I think most of the overlap exists on the TCGS side only, and make use of the API from the GDC side of things, make use of the API to get access to that data. Similarly, I think we could potentially extend our APIs. That'll be a little more work to give one access to all images for a given patient in a given collection, and that would be the relevant API necessary for the GDC to say, here's how you can get the data. They can easily figure out which of our patients are also in their system. But that's on our individual ends, sort of propagating this information that we have data that is linked and stored. We have links to data stored in another repository. This needs to be propagated up to DataMed, and I don't know where in the data model that piece of information exists. I could think about one place where I can add that information. When we create when we create different DOIs or TCIA collections, I could add to let's say TCGA GBM. For the data site entry that I make for the TCGA GBM, I could add a GDC, the genomic DOI link, if there is one, as this data is related to that data. That information, that those relationships are captured, or there are placeholders to describe those relationships in the data site data model. So if similar relationships exist on DataMed, then that would be the right place to do it. This all assumes that GDC is also issuing DOIs for any new collections that they store and manage.
Yeah, Ashish, I just had a question. When you're integrating with the GDC API, are you integrating with the Harmonized portal or the Legacy Archive?
Right now, we're not integrated with GDC at all. That's one of the activities of this new grant.
Okay, because eventually we're going to be retiring the Legacy Archive. So just wanted.
Figured.
Yeah,
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, and just to let you know, we are going to be moving the histology pathology images that we currently have. We're going to be making them available on the Harmonized portal, most likely in the March timeframe. Regarding DOIs, as you know, like GDC, we use UUIDs. We looked into using DOIs a long time ago, and since we use UUIDs for every single entity, the cost was just, it was just, something that, drove us to kind of, obviously we want the UUIDs, but there was a cost associated with the DOI. So at this point, we don't have any plans to support like DOIs within our system. We're continuing to use our UUIDs.
Okay. No, so the reason we went on the DOI route is, so we don't do DOIs at an individual image or an individual series level. We do DOIs at an individual collection or a project level. So in our case, that's about 60 or 70 DOIs for all the TCIA collections. I think the GDC number at that collection level would be the same. The biggest advantage that I see of a DOI is when somebody is using this data.
I guess I'm back in.
Sounds like people are rejoining.
Hi, this is Sharon. Sorry, it said the conference coordinator has left the meeting and it pushed me off, so I'm back.
We all.
Sorry about that. It kicked me out as. Yeah.
Hello?
Hi, Hua.
Hi, Anu. Somehow you dropped?
I didn't drop. ReadyTalk suddenly kicked me out, and because it kicked me out, I guess it kicked everybody else out.
Yeah.
These people are offline?
I don't know. Let's just wait for people get back.
Yeah.
Are you logged in?
Yeah.
Maybe they are not offline then.
So when we've got people back,
Okay.
I think I want to add in a comment about the identifier discussion, which I think should highlight.
Anu, can you check if everyone get back already? Get back online now? I hear Ian.
Yeah, Ian's on the call. I guess, Jeff, are you on the call?
I'm here. Yep.
Yeah. Justin, Michael, Sharon, I know is on the call already.
Michael here.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good, yeah.
Yeah, I think most of the folks are back in now.
Don't know what happened. ReadyTalk had a problem.
So just
All right.
to comment on the identifiers thing. The reasons, so the BioCaddy project, and it was a particular working group within the project. I mean, I think we've been through this before, and in my mind, the issue has been resolved. So I don't know why we keep ending up revisiting it. You know, one of the questions at the outset of BioCaddy was 3 years ago was, well, should there be one kind of identifier that's used for everything? And DOIs were put forward as a possibility for that. And you know, we shared the GDC or the TCGA use case certainly is that we, you know, it was suggested, well, what if we need 3 billion DOIs? And somebody reacted and said, well, that's a stupid thing to do. Why would you need them? Well, we need them for the reasons that Sharon was indicating. But what came out of that working group, and it's and the members of that working group were involved in this. There was a paper that was 10 simple rules for identifiers, but there's a revised version of that paper which was published towards the end of last year, which talks about an identifier scheme based around curies. And the DOI could be a curie. So it's basically around the idea of a prefixed identifier. So the GDC identifiers would simply work by allocating a prefix to them. I mean, in theory, they're UUIDs, so they're probably unique anyway. But to be safe, if we were using GDC IDs, we'd put a prefix on them, like GDC : and that would be the unique ID that we would use in DataMed. And hopefully that people would use when they're citing data to point to something that within GDC or within something else. But under that scheme, both DOIs and UUIDs and many other kinds of identifier can happily coexist. Jeff was the lead on that group and can probably comment in more of the details, but I wanted to make sure that we're, you know, recognizing that that's done and that we should try and incorporate that into the solution somehow as far as handling identifiers goes.
Yeah, right now, I mean, DataCite actually allows a number of different identifiers, but not the specific, not curie forms yet, from what I can tell, but they do take URLs as well, so that could always be used, you know, as a relationship as well.
Yes. So my question is, in each of those two databases, what kind of identifier we have about those individuals, which will help us link to same people in two different databases? Like, what kind of ID or do we have about those participants?
Well, there's either a UUID or there's what was called the barcode, which
yeah, I mean, from the description earlier, I wasn't sure if it links studies or if it was linking subjects.
Are you talking about on the TCIA side or the GDC side?
Either side, we want to know, like, what are the information recorded for individuals, which might help identify this individual.
So on the TCIA side, everything's stored in DICOM, so it follows the DICOM hierarchy. So there's a patient ID, then there's at each time point the patient was seen for imaging. There's a study UID, and then at each time point that they go in for a visit, if there are multiple scans performed, each of those scans has a series UID, and then inside of each of those scans, it's made up of a stack of images. Each one of those images has a SOP instance UID. So it doesn't matter what level of the hierarchy you want to, talk to. There's a unique identifier at every step of that.
Right.
And the patient ID is not something like a patient social security number or something. It's like just a unique ID assigned within TCIA, right?
Yeah, actually, that might be the one spot where it's not completely unique. So within a data set, it would be unique, but it's possible that somebody could be patient 1 in project 1 and then in project number 2 they could have another patient 1. But you won't run in if we're talking about with TCGA specifically. We followed the patient naming structure that the GDC used, so all of those are going to be unique because of the way that they formulated the patient identifiers.
I mean, I don't think, Justin, we need to drill down to that level for the purposes we're talking about here. We don't need to drill down beyond the patient level, certainly. But
yeah, I mean, I'm a little confused by.
From my recollection, TCIA is using what's generally referred to as the patient barcode rather than the UUID, right? Which
Correct.
is the prefix for the disease within TCGA, and then it's usually another, I think it's a 2-letter code, isn't it, for the site, and then a patient ID, like a 4-letter digit within that for the patient. It's the details, should be sorted out later, but I think that's sufficient. Should be sufficient to give Hua a feel for what are used as patient identifiers within.
Yeah, and the GDC side, I think you're probably referring. The individual patient is just a case, and we have a case UUID and a case ID, and the case ID is more the TCGA like barcode, and the case UUID, of course, is just the random, set of the unique set of numbers. But I think if you're talking about the participant, you're talking about like the case level in the GDC.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So is DataMed itself intending to provide subject level listings, or just stopping at the data set level or project level?
So primarily we are on the data set level right now, but there is an interest actually when you go to the sample level.
Okay. Well, based on what Ashish was saying earlier, I think the lowest hanging fruit here is clearly at the data set level, having something that says TCGA-BRCA as a project name in TCIA actually links to the same patients that were part of TCGA-BRCA and G2C. That would be a real simple column to add in all of our data models, basically to say, does this exist in some other place, corresponding data types for this project. Doing it at the patient level, or any other level for that matter, I think we'd be moving into the space where you'd be running queries against our existing API. We already have, what you need in place, I believe. It would just be a matter of figuring out, what identifier you're trying to key off of and using the correct API call.
I mean, we can bring this up on screen to show both the GDC and TCIA side by side, so Hua and Jeff can see what we're talking about. I'm trying to do that quickly here. So
should Anu assign you the presentation role?
Let me do that.
So, all right, let's. lost the window with ReadyTalk. Hang on. Okay, it looks like I lost detail of that as well. Okay, so how do I share from here? I don't see the...
So Ian, all you need, there's a share button on the top where you have stop meeting, stop recording, share. See that?
I don't see that. I'm just in the browser.
But it does. I don't see you as being a presenter. Somehow, I do not know why. Let me do this.
All right.
Did you get it? Yeah.
It's opening. It's opening now.
Okay.
It's just downloading the. All right. Installation complete. Okay. Connecting to server. Okay. Share.
Did you guys see it? Oh.
It's coming up now.
Okay.
So I think the answers to your questions are much easier to see if we're looking at what we're talking about. So here on the left is a GDC, and we're looking here at the TCGA LUSC. That's the project. So that's the lung data for the TCGA. It's small cell lung cancer. Lung small cell. So those are the case IDs that are used, and the project ID that's used in TCGA. Here's the Cancer Imaging Archive. Here it's called the collection ID. Is the same as the project ID, and the subject IDs will presumably find, they're sorted differently, we would presumably find all of those subject IDs over here. Now you've got 37 patients here with, Justin, with images, whereas there are 504 cases altogether in the study. So that, and there are about 30 studies like this. Is that an accurate summary?
Yeah, I think so.
So, Hua, does that, Jen, does that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah.
So what we would find is, these have barcodes as well. If we look on this, we'll find that case has a UUID as well. Okay. But I don't think you're using the UUIDs in TCIA, is that right?
No, we do. So there's different UUIDs applied at the different levels. So when I was talking before about the hierarchy, this is...
right. Well, and there's a hierarchy to Kingdom Come for the in TCGA as well. Each subspecimen each specimen and each derivative of the specimen, etc., has the same thing that goes on in GDC. I'm talking about, do you use the case UUID that GDC uses to refer to the case, or do you just use
case ID?
The case
No,
ID.
yeah, it's just the case ID. Sorry.
Yeah. So the join between the two would be done on the subject ID, not on the UUID.
So then, I don't know. The other thing that might be worth looking at is the API calls. So if you, on our side, if you went to that access the data menu in black, and then REST API.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then if you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see the different. So you have to get an API key. You register one of those with our help desk. And then if you look at the API reference table a little further down, it shows you, how to put together the base URL with the different query endpoints. So you could use the get patient query to obtain a whole bunch of information at the patient level. And I think what Ashish was saying before was that we could just add an additional query endpoint that had information about, we could have /query/ supporting data or something like that. And you could put a URL, or we could put whatever other, kind of information that we decide is necessary. We could put in a couple of other fields like that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess one other piece of this, sounds like maybe Ashish didn't make it back on the call, but were you pulling information about TCI datasets directly through our API, or were you getting it from DataCite still?
I think we're getting it from DataCite. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff.
Sorry, I was on mute. I think we still are. I could check on that.
Okay. I mean, the only difference would just be whether we need to add that field within our own internal databases and expose it via our API, or whether we need to add the field somewhere in the DataCite, set of information that's being kept on that end.
I also think maybe for us, the DataMed team, we would need to go back and reindex TCGA, because right now we're really indexing at the project level.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
But I think one of the things we're saying here is that you can continue to index at the project level and just in some way make the link between the two projects based on the project ID.
But Ian, so from what I see, all of the cases in TCGA do not necessarily have images that are stored in TCIA, right?
Right. But when at the level we're talking about, I mean, if we talk about finding a data set, any data set that you look at isn't necessarily going to have all data for all subjects within a study. And that is something that you resolve once you get to the data set. So what I just pulled up here on screen was that this is for one of the TCGA data sets in TCIA. This is the metadata that DataMed currently has. So I don't know if that gives you a clue as to where this is coming from. To the question that Justin was asking Jeff. I mean, I think partly, Anu, and while this comes down to, and I don't think we've seen this, and I don't think we should probably do it now, is a walkthrough of what you think the functionality in DataMed would be.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that later.
So essentially, the plan is then just to say, okay, they have some overlapping information between the two data sets, correct?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in some ways you can say this is the same project. So I couldn't quickly find the small cell lung cancer project, but each of these is a single project that has data in both repositories.
Okay.
I think that's fine. Data set ID.
So how much data are you planning on pulling from, like the GDC as well as the TCIA? Like, are you looking at like a lot of the clinical data?
About this much, Sharon. About this much that you can see on screen.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's just the metadata. That's all of the data. Well, there's other data behind the scenes, but it's still only really the metadata about the studies.
It's just the metadata, and we follow the DAT format, trying to extract those metadata.
But I mean, for the GDC, Sharon, the equivalent page to what we just looked at, I'm just trying to pull it up. So this is the metadata that it's pulling for the
GDC?
In this case, yeah, the sarcoma project. So kind of, one possible interface here is that you could be pulling this project, which is TCGA SARC, and where it's this data set. So we've got, these are the data, methylation data, transcriptome profiling, biospecimen, high variation copy number, etc. Those and clinical. Those are the data types that are in the GDC. And from what Sharon is saying, later the pathology imaging data will be in here. But one way of representing this is to say for this, and I'm calling this data set a larger level, that you could show that the type of radiology data could be shown here as coming from TCIA.
But if that's the level we are looking at, we actually should be able to simply link them up, because I'm looking at the the TCG and what's coming out of G and the TCIA. Both of them have their data set IDs the same, right?
Yeah, I was hoping we were actually looking at something really simple. You don't need to make this more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the next step, Anu?
So
I'm
just looking at the screen right now, sorry, just a question about the way that this would work ideally. Is it just that you would have, all the information should basically be the same about, in this case, TCGA sarcoma? Would the only thing that you need to do is just add a second access entry that has the TCIA stuff in it?
You mean
Actually,
if they have the...
You've hit on something, Justin, which I was also thinking about, which is there's a certain set of the metadata here, which you're not adding anything to. I mean, I hesitate to make TCIA secondary here, but you kind of added on data to what already exists.
Well, I mean, there need to be a new section, right? So with the GDC and then with the TCIA, with their data record, there'd have to be an associated data or something else section, right? Where,
I mean, you're kind of looking, what I've tried to mock up here is, in some sense, it's a merge of these two pages, right?
So Jeff, is this merge something that we could do from our end, or would it have to come from
well, I'm trying to figure out
and TCIA?
I mean, we would still have individual records for GDC and TCIA, right?
Yeah.
And then the merging.
So I guess this is kind of the similar situation as what we have for, let's say, Gamma and Geo, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, we just have to. I don't know. In that, is there? Hold on. I need to. We'd have to check DATS on how they specify the related data sets.
Sorry, I had to step away and take another call. I mean, listening in on what I heard before I had to take that call. Yeah, there are two records here that one wants to retain probably in some form, but the fact that they're related in some way. And so which were the two that you were saying we'd have the parallel situation with? I think while you were saying this also occurs with another pair of data.
I think Anu just said Gamma. What did you say, Anu?
It's Gamma Geo. But that's more.
ReadyTalk just kicked me out again.
Oh, we can hear you though now.
Yeah, because I called in, but it won't let me call in as the chairperson anymore, and it might stop the conference.
Okay.
Just to let people know. I don't know what the problem is, if it's with mice.
I mean, there's a related identifier field, just like DataCite within DATS, that we can use. And we would just have to specify the relation type.
Yeah, but this is a different. Like previously, we worked on duplicated data sets, right? Showing
Right, but that was with distributions, right? So data set had distributions. There's a related piece of data that's out there, and so we would have to specify what relation types we want to use, and that related identifier section can be used then to store those linkages.
Mm.
So.
All right.
Okay. So then, Jeff, based on the information that we have now, can we go back and remap and just add in our transformation script the related identifiers information? Oh, come on.
And we should. It depends where. We need to. Depends where we're pulling the data from. So if we're just getting the data from the TCIA side, for example, we'll have to write a little, piece of code to, from GDC to pull that data.
We're getting towards the end of time, so maybe this is something that needs some digestion and then discuss further, and we can contact the TCIA and GDC teams as needed.
That's right. I think it's great to see what's available in each of those databases, and we need to think a little bit more about how we actually going to connect and show this kind of connection.
At the risk of me dumbing it down, a certain level of the questions I can address, and we can reach out to TCIA and GDC as needed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
All right.
That sounds like a plan then.
Mm-hmm. Anu, do you have more items? I actually have to leave for another meeting, so